Let's talk about UFC 310.
Battery is low, please charge.
Shut the hell up. Don't embarrass me.
Battery is low, please charge.
I plugged you in, you dirty. Sit up straight, put your shoulders back, take your channel super seriously and super professional. Let's talk about UFC 310. Where should we start? We're not going to do the full card just because some of them are boring and who cares, right?
Oh, you're a casual. Only casuals say that.
No. I've been watching UFC and into martial arts since before UFC 1, okay? I've been into martial arts since the first time I saw Karate Kid and Bloodsport. Thank you very much.
That hurts me just looking at it.
Although I've never been called a casual, so I don't even know why I'm defending it. All right, we're only going to talk about the interesting ones, like Clay Guida and Chase Hooper. By the way, I think the Dana White comment of Clay Guida should retire. What did he see from Clay Guida that made him think that Clay Guida is all used and burnt up? That boy has crackhead energy. I want to see Clay Guida forever. Thank you very much. And there are some fighters I think should retire. But Clay Guida is not one of them. And he's not allowed to retire without fighting Tony Ferguson. That's the fight to make. Clay Guida versus Tony Ferguson. Boom. Then they can retire. Both of them. Make it. Chase Hooper, has he hit puberty yet? I don't know. That's up for discussion. I guess he pulled it off against Clay Guida. So whatever. That's cool. Are you guys excited about Chase Hooper? I'm just not. I don't know why. I'm not. He's good. I appreciate the technical skill, but as a character and a person that intrigues me and makes me want to see what he's going to do next, just isn't there. The next one of interest is Michael Chiesa and Max Griffin. What happened is exactly what I thought would happen. So there's that. Yeah, moving on. Joshua Van, Cody Durden, Chris Weidman, and Eric Anders. I watched the whole thing like this. Is his leg okay? I don't like watching fights like that. If your leg has been amputated before in the octagon, I don't want to see it again. And that includes Conor McGregor. I'm just going to be cringing the whole time. It makes my skin crawl. I'm getting uncomfortable even talking about it. Brian Battle and Randy Brown. Brian Battle's an interesting character. I don't have anything to say about that fight. Aljamain Sterling and Movsar Evloev. I have a really hard time saying his name. That was everybody thought that was going to be like the most boring fight. And it wasn't. It wasn't the most boring fight.
But we'll talk about Volkov versus Gon in a moment.
The next fight after that was Vicente Luque and Themba Gorimbo. That was pretty awesome. Vicente Luque making a comeback, and it looked good. Looked like old school Vicente Luque. So excited to see what he does next. I'll be paying attention when he fights. Anthony Smith and Dominic Reyes. Did you guys see Anthony Smith's mindset before going in? I think at the pre-fight conference, he was saying he didn't care if he won or lose. He just wants to punch someone in the face. I mean, you're in the right business for that, but you still have a career. I understand he lost his coach, who was also his best friend. And that's pretty rough. So you know what? I think Anthony Smith, for once, actually has a get-out-of-jail-free card. And you know what? He has shown us some savage fights. So although my first instinct is to kind of rag on him, and I know everybody else is, and yes, he's delusional, but all these fighters are delusional. You have to have that. You have to have a certain amount of delusion just to be successful in this world. So we can't really poo-poo on that. The fight went exactly how I thought it would. You know, Anthony Smith has two kinds of fights. He has one where he's curled up in a ball on the ground, just giving up. And he has some where he finishes his opponent in a spectacular way. I'm too lazy right now to look up every single one of his fights and see how he won them. Maybe you guys will, and you put it in the comments. But, you know, the fights that he's won that I remember were pretty spectacular finishes. I don't think the majority of them have been decisions. I could be wrong about that. But I think in his fights, somebody gets finished, whether it's him or somebody else. And you know what? To be honest, every time he's been finished, I think it's been half him that finished himself, curled up in a ball and giving up. So I know that's a bad look for a UFC fighter, especially one that says he's the best in his division. Nate Landwehr and Duho Choi, pretty good. Pretty good. I don't have much else to say about that, but I'll be paying attention to him. All right, I did want to talk about this one. Bryce Mitchell and Kron Gracie. How did Kron get a ranked fighter coming off of 2 losses with bad performances? Because his name is Gracie, which is weird. And I know reality is favoritism is real in this world, right? We all do it. We all show favoritism, right? Not all of us are perfectly like we judge somebody else exactly the same as we judge our best friend. We're not going to judge our enemies the same way we're judging our best friend. We judge our enemies a lot harsher, right? Or people that we dislike. But in a professional situation where lots of money and careers and time and energy and commitment spent, I think it's a little rough to see special treatment in this way, because there's lots of people under Gracie that deserved a ranked fighter before him. But you know what? The UFC is into putting on interesting fights, and having a Gracie name in there, I get it. So it could be more than favoritism. It could just, it probably is more of a business decision. Having said that, I knew Bryce Mitchell was going to bring it on this one. This was a great comeback fight for Bryce Mitchell, because now his confidence is going to be back up. Probably has a little bit of PTSD after that Josh Emmett knockout, right? Where he's all twitching on the ground. Did you guys see that show that just hit Netflix, The Cage? It's really good. I think it's in French with English dubs though. But check out that movie, because it actually puts you in the perspective of the fighter fighting his way up to the top. And Cyril Gahn's in it. John Jones is in it. There's quite a few UFC fighters that you'll recognize in there. I think Marab might even be in it. I could be wrong about that one. But that was a badass elbow that Bryce Mitchell brought down on Kron. I love how he slammed him. He put his forearm on his face like, okay, he keeps doing this. He keeps pulling guard. I mean, what is this, 1997? And Bryce Mitchell puts his forearm on his face and just slams him to the mat. Probably rocks him from that just to begin with when his head hit the mat. And then he hit him with an elbow, made him feel a little jello. And then he hit him with another devastating elbow. The ref had seen enough, pulled him off, and Bryce, Thug Nasty Mitchell, got his hand raised. And that's badass. The most boring fight of the main card, Cyril Gahn and Alexander Volkov. Now, my opinion of this, first off, it's interesting because when I was watching it, after they raised Cyril's hand, I was like, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, it was pretty close. It was close. It would be a hard one to judge, but I'm pretty sure Volkov probably won that, right? And then I got online to see what other people thought, and everybody was like, oh, Volkov was robbed. Here's the thing. Cyril Gahn came out with so much hype. We expected so much of him. And then it kind of just died off. I think his last spectacular fight was maybe with, was it Derek Lewis? And he knocked out Derek Lewis. I think that might be his last like hype fight where we were like, oh boy, this guy's got something going on. But as soon as he was put in the octagon with Francis Ngannou and John Jones, and we thought Cyril Gahn was good, well-rounded on the ground and his feet, but it's starting to look like he's not great on the ground. And after that Alexander Volkov fight, I'm not so sure he's good standing up either. I think maybe he's just a athletic-looking dude that's good at bouncing around and, you know, can tear up some mid-level, and I'm talking about elite, mid-level elite fighters. But when it comes to high-level elite fighters, he does not look good. So it was a pretty non-spectacular fight, and Cyril Gane looked a little less spectacular than Alexander Volkov, but it was still close. And the way Volkov is coming off saying, you know, what, were the judges blind? Like, are they sleeping with him? Does he have a nicer body than me? Things like this. Dude, you did not win in a spectacular, obvious way. And, you know, if you don't want the judges involved, you know what to do. But you didn't do it, and you couldn't do it against Cyril Gane, who's not looking very spectacular. That's my take on that fight. Let me know what you think. The next one was the one I was most excited about. Shavkat Rakhmonov and Ian Machado Gary. Ian, when he first came into the scene, I was like, I like this kid. He's a savage. Then he started talking, and his wife started kind of getting involved, and just some of his personality and their dynamic together came out, and it started being harder to respect him just because it's like, okay, kid, shut up. You look like a cuckold in front of the world. But you know what? After thinking about it, I still agree with it. He talks too much. He's annoying. But I have to admit, after accepting this fight and seeing what we saw him do, I got to hand it to him. I respect Ian Machado Gary as a fighter, even as a fighter. Yeah, as a fighter, beast, savage. He's back to savage. So I don't think he can go back to, maybe he's a savage in the ring and a cuck in the sheets. I don't know. That's not my business. The only business of mine is getting what I paid for when I pay for pay-per-view and watch him on a card. That's my business. And so far, so good. He's doing a good job. I think his stock was raised, even though he lost. He says he doesn't feel like he lost, and I get it. It was a pretty even match. Shavkat since then did come out and say he had a torn ligament during that fight, which is kind of a mean move a little bit, because that fight made Shavkat look more human. It took a little of the edge off of him, the superhuman edge, like Hamzat has, off of Shavkat a little bit, made him a little more human, and it raised Ian's stock at the same time because it was a close fight, which nobody was expecting. Everybody expected Shavkat just to run through him. There were people who believed in Ian, but for the majority, most people, on paper, Rakhmonov should have ran through him, but that didn't happen. So let's move on to the main event. Alexandre Pantoja versus the new debut of Japanese superstar Kai Asakura, which he's already on UFC 5. I played him today and lost, got knocked out. I had a feeling this was going to happen. The hype was so crazy around Kai. I know that it's one of the biggest UFC deals signed in recent times. I know UFC wants that 8 or 10 or 11 million subs that Kai has in Japan. So win or lose, Kai is a superstar. It's kind of like the Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor thing. They can lose every fight they do for the rest of their lives from here on in, and they're still going to be superstars, and people are going to still love them. So it was a good move on the UFC's part, especially since how Pantoja's pretty much already run through the division by working his way up through it, by bringing him new blood. And Pantoja looked like a champion. Asakura looked like an exciting contender and challenger. And I'm excited to see who they put Kai up against next. Question to you guys. Who do you think or who do you want to see Kai fight next? And if you want, actually, we'll go ahead and look it up. Flyweights in the UFC. We'll look up flyweight ranking. Okay. Brandon Royval, Brandon Moreno, Amir Albazi, Kai Kara France, Tatsuro Taira, Alex Perez, Asu Almabayev, I know I messed that up, Steve Ursig, Manel Kape, Tim Elliott. Those are the top 10. So out of the top 10, who do you want to see him fight? I'm kind of thinking they might put him against Kai Kara France. But then again, are they going to give him a rank? Yeah, they're going to give him a ranked opponent, right? That I don't know. It just depends on what their contract says. And we don't have access to that contract, do we? But yeah, I think I want to see him against Kai Kara France or Brandon Moreno next. Granted, that's not fair to the people who are already ranked under him. But like we talked about earlier, it's about making good fights that excite the fans. So there it is. I think that's good for this one. Subscribe to the channel if you like it. If you don't. Say some stuff in the comments. Let me know what you think. Who do you want to see out of everybody who won and lost? Who do you want to see him fight next? I'll see you in the next video.
Yeah, thank you for kicking in with MMA Flex and Chill. Chill. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. Ring the bell, ring the bell.